with Mr. Brad Hudson in the house. Let's get done. So, wanted to kick off this conversation by asking you the following. So, in my research, I learned that you, how can I start this? Why don't you first tell us maybe, when did you run your first marathon? And specifically, what was your finish time? But most importantly, how old were you, Brad? How old were you?
So I ran my first marathon when I was 12.
What?
In the Gettysburg Marathon. And I was trying to break the national record for 12-year-olds, and I think it was like 2:47. And it ended up, if you know anything about Gettysburg, it's a pretty hilly course. And I ended up running 2:50, which was disappointing. But I got like 3rd overall or 6th overall. I don't know, something like that. I was doing great until like Big Round Top. I don't know. I think it's the mountain. It's one of the big hills where the South, that was their greatest moment in the Civil War, the Confederate.
Yep.
And it's where they said like, give them steel or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a pretty famous hill. So
Yeah.
there's Big Round Top and Little Round Top, and they come at like 22 miles into the race. So I was 12 and I don't know. I did a marathon.
But okay,
I was really into running.
But that's what I was gonna say. You're 12 years old, so like, how do you train for it? I'm just curious. You're not that young age.
So I was already running a lot. My coach at the time was Mark Wetmore, who's now the University of Colorado coach, and I was one of his first good athletes. And we ran time. We regularly ran 20-mile runs, and so a marathon wasn't a huge stretch for me at that time.
20-mile.
Yeah, he worked for Arthur Lydiard, and so they were big on doing 20-milers. Even we started in 7th grade doing 20-milers.
That's an interesting point that you mentioned, because
is that child abuse? That could be, right?
Well, okay, no, this is it's just funny because like I follow social, I like doing trail running and ultra running sometimes, and like I see some posts on social media, parents that have their children run 50K, 50-milers, 100-milers. Maybe not 100-milers that much, but like 50Ks, 50-milers, and I'm like the kid is like 10 years old, he's still developing. So, but yeah, we can talk about that later. It's one of those things like, I mean, they're still developing, but I don't know. Like,
yeah. So I mean, I was into running, and my coach and supported it, and I've heard stuff from doctors even that at 9 years old is like a real efficient time for. I'm not saying kids should all be running marathons at 9 years old.
Oh, no way, really?
But supposedly the size of your heart versus your body, it's like, I don't know. That's what you can justify anything these days.
Oh, that's awesome. So, so tell us about, do you grow up in PA, Pennsylvania?
No, so I grew up in New Jersey, about 45 minutes from New York City, and I regularly ran, we would go to the Midnight Run in New York. We ran a lot of the New York Roadrunners Club races. Fred LeBeau at the time was putting on like the Bagel Run and Trevere Twosome Midnight Run. So we used to go into New York a few times a year and run their races, and we ran a lot of local road races. We're a running club that had age kids from like 9 years old to 50-year-old people.
Right, and you mentioned that you've been into running pretty much your whole life. I mean,
time I was 9.
Wow. So couple of highlights from your running career in school. You set a national high school record in the indoor 5,000 meters as a junior. And this is more like in college, but you had All-American honors at the University of Oregon.
Yep.
So grew up in Jersey, started running when you were 7 years old, not 9 years old, right?
Yeah, 8 or 9.
And so tell us more about your experience in high school, because I know that then, like, did you grow up in Jersey and then went to college in Oregon, or how was that transition?
Yeah, so I was running tons in New Jersey, and I won the state championship in New Jersey, and my junior year I wanted to move out to Oregon because I wanted to run for Oregon, and so I moved out to Oregon.
Why?
'Cause I was going to become an emancipated minor, and so I moved out to Oregon. I was getting
how old were you?
So I was 17.
Okay.
And I think at the time I was getting Social Security, so I was able to live on some of that.
Yeah.
And my dad helped me out.
Yeah.
And so I moved out when I was 17 and lived on my own, and went to South Eugene High School and won the state championship there. And Eugene was at the time was the big running place, and still is. And
that's amazing. So. Like I think about you're saying that you were 17 years old when you decided to do that move. I think about my, back when I was 17, 18 years old back in Peru, and I don't know, like I used to live with my parents. I don't know, I didn't have that kind of ambition, I don't know, maybe it's because I didn't really know what is it that I wanted to do. It was more like, I think I'm going to do the things that I'm supposed to do. Like back then, and I think I said this before, my relatives, they were doctors, and I thought, okay, maybe that should probably what I should do and things like that. So it's so cool that at that early age you already kind of knew what you wanted to do, and you did it.
Yeah, I figured if I was going to be a good runner, that's where they all were, so I might as well try.
That's awesome. So can you tell us more about your experience in Oregon? I mean, at the University of Oregon.
Yeah, so I finished high school at South Eugene, and before I entered the University of Oregon, I ran a marathon, Chicago Marathon, and ran 2:17. And so I knew I wanted to be a marathoner, but I knew that I was a little bit young to kind of just start doing marathons. So I ran at Oregon for 4 years and had a great experience at Oregon, and ran track and cross country. And my coach was Bill Dellinger, who coached Prefontaine. And
Sorry, it's just one of the things that for our listeners, one of the things that I was telling Brad before this interview is, like, I'll be honest, I was not very familiar with running and track. So it was really fascinating to learn about all the people that you train with and the people that you coached and all the different events and races that you participated in, you help people to go. So okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. So even when I was in high school, my senior year, the way I trained myself was that I would every Monday I would run down to Mac Court, which is the Oregon gymnasium where the track and field is and the basketball used to be, and I would sneak in the locker room at like 7 a.m. on the middle of my run and look on the wall and see what the week of training was. So he would post usually on Sunday night or Monday.
Oh,
he would post the training, like 5K, 10K guys, and that was my. I would already start doing their workouts. So that was my training.
Oh, that's awesome. That is so smart. I've done that before. Like I remember, used training plans from previous years and things like that. And what did you study in Oregon?
What did I really study? So I studied running and I studied music.
Oh, really?
Just on my own.
Yeah,
but I never finished my degree, but I was headed towards my American Studies in English.
Yeah.
I was a major, but mostly I ran. I'd come to campus every day. I didn't always go to class. And I'd read running stuff, or I would read Melody Maker, which is a British music magazine.
Huh. So is that the reason why you're so into music?
Yeah, I've always been into music and running.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's fun. So, and I was also reading about your marathon PR, and correct me if I'm wrong. Was it at the Cal International Marathon 1990 when you placed or you ran a 2:13.24 second?
Yep. I got second to Peter Renner, who's the New Zealand steeplechaser. He was like the 6'5" steeplechaser from New Zealand. And, I was just out of college, and I drove down with a friend to race it, and I think I made like $4,000 or $5,000, and it was like, at the time was like I'd like hit Powerball. I thought I was the richest guy in the world.
Of course. So that was after you say after you finished college.
Yeah.
So was that the plan to pursue a career, I guess, in running?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and was that before you realized that you wanted to, become a coach?
So I never really, I wasn't. I knew I just wanted to run, and I always thought, I guess, and this is kind of strange, I guess, but I always thought in the back of the mind I would be a coach, just because I'd always studied training since an early age. I mean, I used to go to bed at night when I was 10, 11 years old reading, Running the Lydiard Way
What's that? Sorry.
So it's just I met Lydiard when I was 12 years old with Wetmore and at the
I
Midland Run in New Jersey. I remember him joking about blood doping and Frank Shorter and Bill Rogers. And, but I used to go to bed at night and read the Lydiard book on training every night. So Arthur Lydiard was super famous New Zealand coach. He coached Peter Snell and John Davies, among all kinds of Murray Halberg. He's kind of they kind of consider him the I don't know if they consider him the godfather of like aerobic running. So really, he changed the training system from interval-based, like Frank Stanfill type training, German type interval training, to base training, long aerobic runs, 20-mile runs. And
I see.
Aerobic running.
Okay.
Peter Snell did.
Huh. Cool. So, just curious about your coaching beginnings. When do you start coaching? Like, just like the transition from running. Like, because I think I read that. Did you get injured? I think after that marathon, or did you get injured after that Cal marathon?
So I had tons of injuries near the end of my career. I didn't have tons when I was young, and I don't know if it's partly because I grew up on a big hill when I was very young, and I used to sprint down it every day, to start my run, like 5:30 pace. And for some reason, I've never had a bone injury in my life. So, but I ended up getting a lot of tissue injuries. So it's kind of like the tennis elbow thing, strengthening the bone, maybe. I don't know. But I got into coaching, just advising athletes. I was advising Steve Slattery, who won the U.S. championships in the steeple. And I was advising a few other athletes. The first real good athlete I coached was Shayne Culpepper, who won the U.S. trials in the 5K that year, and also won a medal in the World Indoor Championships that year. So she was the first good athlete I had, and then it just went crazy. I was just working at the Boulder Running Company here.
Oh, no way.
I just got Ritzenhein and I just started getting tons of athletes. And so at the time, there really wasn't, right now there's tons of groups and tons of opportunities for people, but at the time there wasn't much. There was V Hill and Bob Larson that were coaching out in Mammoth, coaching Meb and Dina out there. And then there was the Hansons. And then there was like David Martin. And
so the Hansons is the Brooks
team? Brooks Hansons in Michigan, who Ritzenhein now runs for. And then there was David Martin, who just passed away in Atlanta, who's an exercise physiologist. But there really wasn't a lot of programs. Now there's every day there's something going up. There's like 3 a town or something. So at the time, I just was coaching on my own, and that's how I kind of got started.
And I'm curious about what are your biggest, I guess, influences in coaching? I read about Coach Renato Canova. Is that Italian coach? And can you tell me more about him, because I'm not very familiar?
So Canova's for sure Renato Canova is my biggest influence in the Italian system, and it takes from they use a lot of different. It's a pretty sophisticated program, and especially in the marathon, and they use a lot of different layers of aerobic running, and but I'm influenced by a lot of people, but for sure him the most. And you look at marathoning. He coaches in Kenya, and he lives in I-10, and goes back and forth between Italy and I-10, and the sport. From the time I got into coaching to now, the marathon has really changed a lot, and I believe he has a lot to do with it. The more of modern training, faster long runs, and you look at the one event in the world where it has really changed is the marathon, and a lot of it's the Kenyans and Ethiopians have gone to it a lot sooner. It's big money, and also the training's changed. It changed the sport a little bit. Just faster long runs, and I think
so pushing it harder.
Just the long runs are a lot more specific and a lot closer to race pace, and I think it's definitely something the Americans need to be doing.
So that's something that Canova kind of pioneered, and
so they were doing faster long runs, but also the Kenyans I think influenced him as well. And the Kenyans were the first to really start doing really fast long runs. Winjiro, and then Samuel Winjiro won the Olympic gold in 2008, and it really exploded in that time frame.
So you were talking about E10. For people who are not familiar with that town, can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so it's basically a town in Kenya. I think it's 30 minutes from Eldoret. I've never been, but I've had athletes I've coached who have been there, and it's just a small little town with dirt roads and trails all over, and most of the athletes in Kenya all train there. And not much to do there other than train. And, you know, athletes come from all over the world. There's a lot of camps there, and, you know, tons of the best athletes in the world all train there. Dirt roads. It's at close to, I think it's 7,800 feet.
Okay, so altitude.
All dirt tracks and hilly. It's in the Rift Valley, so it's very, very hilly. And
how's the weather like?
Pretty perfect. I think other than the rainy season. There's a wet season in the summer, but it's like, you know, perfect conditions for training. Yeah.
And besides Renato, any other coaches that influence you?
Yeah, I think I'm influenced by tons of different coaches. So, of course, Mark Wetmore, who was my first coach, but you know, I think you look at the coaches in the U.S. that are getting it done, and I think Alberto Salazar has done amazing, and Jerry Schumacher as well. And, you know, they have the best athletes, but also they've done well with the best athletes. I think our women are doing amazing. I think in the marathon, I think our men have to do a little bit better. But
right. Okay. Nice. This is a question that I was thinking my way here. Like, what point, I guess, of your career, coaching career, and I hate to use this word, would you say put you on the map, and I'm quoting here, as a well-respected, you know, coach for elite runners?
So I think, you know, it happened pretty quickly. I had just started coaching, and Shayne Culpepper won a medal in the world indoors and then won the U.S. trials in the 5K and improved quite a bit. I think 20 seconds in the 5K or 15 seconds. And
wow.
So, I would say you know, that's what put me on the map. But, you know, you have to have good athletes to get put on the map. You know,
right.
If you don't have there's great coaches that never coach good athletes that are probably great coaches. But, you know, you really need good athletes to get on the map. And I think, you know, Ritzenheim probably, you know, I coached him for 5 years, and that kind of put me on the map. Jorge Torres, James Carney. I had a lot of athletes at that time.
It's interesting that you mentioned that the fact that you said you have to have good athletes. It makes me think, put it into perspective as an entrepreneur. You always hear this idea that you can, you know, we have a product or a service that you can put a lot of market into it, but if the product or the service is not good, you can spend thousands of dollars in trying to promote it, market it, and it's not gonna, you know, take off because it sucks. So
who's the best coach in the world? Your parents.
The
true. Genetics you get is really.
Oh, yeah. I wish I had better genetics, but anyway. So okay, so you started training Shayne Culpepper. Is she related to Alan Culpepper?
Yeah, they're married.
Okay.
And,
I mean,
their son Cruz is a sophomore in high school, just ran 4:11 in the mile. So the talent comes from the mother. So even though some comes from the dad, the talent for distance running is in the women's ovaries. So it doesn't come from the male. So if your mom was a good athlete, chances are a good endurance athlete, chances are the kid's gonna be.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, and the only reason why I knew about Alan Culpepper is because, I mean, I read his name a bunch of times when I used to buy Runner's World, and again,
yeah,
you know,
great guy, and he won I think it was 2004. He won the marathon trials, and they're great running people and family.
So you started training Shayne, and that's how I guess you built that word of mouth that made other athletes come to you. How would they approach you, or did you approach?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, but mostly they were approached. There just wasn't people coaching. There was no options in the professional ranks for people coaching. I think Alberto was coaching, the Hansons were coaching, David Martin. There was a few small little groups, but there wasn't tons of people coaching, and so there wasn't a lot of options for people. You know, mostly it was college coaches when they had the time would coach people, and they didn't always have the time is what it comes down to.
Yeah. So you've trained so many people. I mean, you have this long list, like Olympians, like Dathan Ritzenheim, Jorge Torres, you know, Olympian Benita Willis. You had I don't know, like Jason Hartman, Terry Moody. Then you had like 8 athletes competing at the LA Olympics in trials in LA in 2016, including Matt Daniels, Fernando Cavada, Carlos Trujillo, Terry Moody. Like, I mean, I'm sure that you have like so many memories to share about, like any fond memories, you know, any particular or on about athletes and races. But I don't know, there's one memory that you'd like to share with us, like any particular memory of, you know, any of your athletes, you know, achieving any particular goal or winning, you know, something big.
So there's a lot, you know. I'd hate to just pick one,
Yeah.
but I think probably was 2008 when Dathan Ritz and I made the Olympic team in the marathon. And Beijing went well; he ran really well. But I think the trials were more important because he was a little bit untested in the marathon. He had run one marathon and it hadn't really gone amazing.
Yeah.
He had run New York the year before, and so we had moved to sea level to try to learn the craft of the marathon a little bit quicker, a little easier. So I love altitude and everything, but I just think when you're doing a lot of the specific stuff in the marathon, you can learn a lot quicker at sea level.
Yeah.
And so we had to learn quick. Our learning curve had to be fast and short because we didn't have much time. And so I think if I'm proudest of a moment, it could be that moment, just because we were under the gun and he got it done.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I think I read somewhere that I think part of your coaching philosophy, maybe I'm wrong, but you would say something like 3/4 of the training happens in altitude, and like the rest you have to kind of go to sea level, or at least try to simulate, you know, as much as you can. You know, you go to where you're gonna run, or you know, if let's say your race is in sea level, you go to sea level. Is that true? Like,
yeah, so there's a couple of philosophies. I think Alberto and Jerry Schumacher these days, at least for the 5K, 10K, they'll do altitude as a couple different phases, but they'll do it last minute and go from altitude to racing.
Okay.
Because it's more of an raising your engine event. But the marathon, at least how I train my athletes, it gets more specific and very fuel oriented, and I think and how modern marathoning is. So I think for non-Africans, so for Kenyans at least, the stuff that I understand from Canova is that they're really not tons different at 8,000 feet than they are at sea level. So,
oh really?
Yeah. So they're definitely a little slower, but not much.
Yeah.
Now
wow.
compared to this winter, Ali Kiefer, who I started coaching after this fall, and had gone to Kenya, and you know, the difference between, she was training with some other athletes there, but there's for non-Africans, they definitely gain more when they come down, and whether it's, you know, generations of them not being at altitude, or you know what I mean, whatever it is, I'm not positive what it is, but they gain more when they come down compared to a Kenyan.
Huh.
Does that make sense? Like, yeah,
right.
So Kenya might gain 2% or something, but you know, Ali might gain 10% or something.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I also I think we're talking about is, I think your vision as a coach, you've always had this, I guess, goal to try to elevate American marathoning to, you know, to the top level. I think you were mentioning that, I guess, women are doing really well right now.
U.S. women, yeah.
U.S.
sure.
women.
Yep.
And you're also saying that maybe there's opportunity in the men's, among men's.
Yeah, so I think overall U.S. distance running is doing amazing. We're winning medals and doing amazing stuff. And but my passion's the marathon, and I think the men have not done as well as in other events on the track or anything. And so that's where my passion lies. But overall, we're doing amazing.
Yeah, of course. Okay. So it's funny because I was just gonna say we're talking about let me see. Oops, sorry.
It's okay.
I'm spaced. I was just reading this quote. I think you said this before. Like, I think we're comparing U.S. running with what, you know, professional cycling does. Is this, I guess, philosophy of like being very specific on your training plans and also trying to simulate as much as you can, the places where you're going to compete. But of course, without the bad stuff. I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the cycling model is, I think there's only a couple groups in the country really that, probably the Barrowman Track Club and Oregon Project, that are really doing, that really have a professional team.
Yeah.
Everyone else is kind of in the minor leagues, sewing stuff on the uniforms, bad news bears kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think the goal for me, is to get corporate sponsorship and have a professional team. There's a lot of pillars to being, great in the sport, and some of it's training, some of it's nutrition, some of it's recovery, some of it's the mental training, and some of it's just sleep. Getting really good recovery off that.
Sleep. I don't sleep enough. I know.
Yeah, you gotta sleep a lot to be good.
I know that's critical. Yeah. One of the things that I learned about, I think I was reading an article about one of your, maybe it's your most popular training plan. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Little Black Book, right?
Yeah. So it's just a book of workouts, but it's a lot of really good workouts. Yeah.
And anyway, I was just reading more about it. And there's a part where you say that you've always felt that if coaches were willing to share a little bit more, we'll be better off. Like, you were saying that I wish there was a little more dialogue. I'm just curious to learn more about what you meant by that.
So for sure, I think especially in the internet age, I think that the U.S. distance running got a lot better because a lot of information is shared and everyone knows what everyone's doing worldwide in training. And, there's some groups that share more in the U.S. than others, and I'm pretty I put everything up that my athletes do. I don't really care.
Yeah.
And part of it is that I feel like in the Canyons of This Way and Canova, they share what they do and they want others to learn from it, and I think we need to get better in the marathon especially. There's groups that share and some that don't, but some people like to keep stuff closer to the chest. I don't know. It's a competitive sport and there's big money at stake, and so some people probably
Interesting. Can we talk more about your experience coaching Dathan Reitzenheim? I know that from what I know, he superstar runner in all different kinds of distances, especially marathon. He was with you for 5 years, and then he ended up going to be coached by Alberto Salazar. First, we'd love to hear more about your experience coaching him, and
so it's it was great coaching him. He's a rare athlete because he's super motivated, super talented, and super dedicated to the craft. And, you don't see tons of athletes like that.
Yeah.
The closest athlete, actually an athlete that I'm working with now, Ali Kiefer, I think is maybe even more so dedicated, than tonight. You don't see too many people that talented, but also that, bought in and all in. We would have done anything to be great, outside of cheating,
Yeah.
So it's great to coach him, and
how do you meet him?
So he was running at the University of Colorado here.
Okay.
And so I forget how I started. How I started coaching him. He had just gotten a stress fracture. He was training for the 2004 trials. I was coaching Shayne.
Okay.
And I remember seeing him at the trials, and he had a broken foot. He ran on a broken foot, and he'd had tons of stress fractures in a row. And he's like, "Hey, can we talk?" And so we just started working together.
Yeah.
And he left school. He left Colorado a year earlier. Then he still had a year left.
Yeah.
When he left.
Yeah. And so one of the things that I think I read this before is that like sometimes, when you're coaching somebody, especially for a long period of time, and you develop a good relationship, and super successful athlete, when you part ways with your athlete, sometimes it feels like you're breaking up with that person. I'm sure that was not an easy an easy time when.
Yeah. So it definitely not easy, and it works both ways with athletes and coaches, and know. But I think at the time, he made a good move to go to Alberto, and I still think the resources that Alberto had are ridiculous. They have everything they need, and he was having trouble cramping, and so I think it was a good move.
Just to get a little background, can you because again, for people who don't know much about Alberto Salazar, can you tell us more about him, and also what's his current position? Where is he coaching? Yeah,
so Alberto Salazar is the coach of the Oregon Project in Portland, Oregon, on the Nike campus, and he was a great marathoner himself and ran at Oregon under my my same coach at Oregon, Bill Dellinger, and won 3 or 4 New York marathons, had the world record in the marathon, 2:08, and had a great career and got into coaching. It's been coaching a very long time. It's one of the first elite groups out there.
Yeah, of course.
Coach Galen Rupp, who just won Chicago, and
of course,
got a silver in Rio.
Is Galen running Boston?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you about who are your picks for Boston. I mean, besides, I don't know if any of your.
So Canova's guy won last year, but I'm sure Galen is one of the top guys, and Ritzenhein's one of the top guys coming in. So
so
Ritzenhein just got 2nd or 3rd in the New York half, and so So whether he can, I don't know if he can beat Galen, and Canova's guy who won the world championships will be in the. Boston's loaded.
What about on the women's?
Yeah, women. I don't know. Jordan Hussey, Shayne Flanagan. I mean, it's a lot of good Americans running.
Yeah.
So, the interesting thing, it was a really interesting fall because Jordan Hussey ran like 2:20 at Chicago, ran like an unbelievable performance. And there's 2 groups in Portland. There's Bowerman Track Club and there's Alberto. And I think they've really, I think just the competition of the groups has helped each other. Yeah. Because Shayne went on to win New York, and Galen won Chicago. So it's just good. I think competition's good, among groups as well.
Have you been following this triathlete Gwen Jorgensen?
I follow everything. Yeah.
Of course you do. Yeah. I thought it was the only reason why I was thinking about her is because I think she trains with Shayne. I've seen a couple of her videos. For sure. Yeah. She just ran 10K on the track. I'll be honest, like, not that I don't know anything about her, other than I'd heard she ran 32. I just had heard some fast time that she ran in the triathlon or something, and I just assumed it was like 5.9 miles, like most of the stuff. I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know much about Gwen as well because she is, I think, ITU and focused on the Olympic distance triathlon, but from what I know, she's doing it and going after, I think, the Olympic trials.
Yeah, and I thought she was, I'll be honest, I thought, why is this triathlete moving in the running? Running stuff's hard. It's not ezy.
So, but what do you think? What do you think about the fact that...
she's amazing.
I mean, she just gave birth, I don't know, 5 months ago. Or
I was impressed. She debuted in, I think she ran 15:15 or something, 5K, which she hadn't run a track race in years. That's pretty crazy. How fast she ran for her first track race, and she just ran a pretty good 10K at Stanford Invite, so she's good. There's no doubt. Can she make teams? Yeah,
So you definitely you focus mostly on the marathon distance, and this is such a random question I was going to ask later, but have you ever considered coaching athletes for other kinds of running, trail running or ultra running, or have you had that kind of experience? I'm just curious, what are your thoughts there?
So nothing against trail running and ultra running, they're great, and ultra running's gotten crazy and trail running's getting bigger every day. It's just and I'm sure it's just not my passion for it. I've had tons of people ask me, and I want to coach marathoners and fast 10K people, and half marathon. It's just not but it's crazy. This Spanish guy, is it Kilian Jornet? The guy's amazing.
Incredible.
I mean, so the talent is going everywhere now. So it's not just in track and.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the trends that I've seen lately on ultra running, trail running is, and you talk about high intensity training and running fast. Like now you have all these guys that used to focus on short distance running. They're jumping into the ultra running, scene, and they're like really pushing it. I mean, not only killing, but there's other guys that, even like, Mark Buttonhorn, who, Mark, he's like super fast. And I think he's kind of applying that same philosophy. He's like, okay, I'm running super fast, and then I'm just, gonna try to go really fast in ultras. And he recently had his first like 50K, and he won it. And so it's kind of interesting that you do a lot of intensity training, and apply that into longer distances. But like, what was I gonna say?
The good thing, I just to expand on what you said, is it's great, even this Spartan stuff. There's just a lot of opportunities for athletes now. If you get sick of running marathons, or you're maybe a 218 guy or something that's you're not making a living, or there's trail race. There's a lot of different avenues for you to go, and it's
CrossFit and
there's everything. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how everything is evolving. I'm just curious, like, what would you say is the one big mistake that you see coaches doing, when especially in your field, like,
so with training, or
big we would say biggest mistakes that coaching and athletes do when they're training for marathon, let's say.
For marathon, I think, at least what I see up here at altitude, I think it's and this is partly why I want sea level for my athletes. So I think can predict pretty well even up here, but I think not knowing what an athlete can and can't do at sea level. So knowing that, having an idea that their engine is high and they're very fit, but it may not be race specific for the marathon. You see it, a lot of athletes think they're very ready for a marathon to run 208 or 29, and they're not necessarily in that specific type of shape. They're in shape, but not necessarily for the marathon.
Right. One of the things I found interesting, and again, I think I read this before, is like you I think I read this, that one time you're curious about things in general.
Oh, for
and
sure.
So
I've always been. Yeah, always thought I knew it all.
And I think I read that maybe, I don't know, years ago, or maybe it was recently, you were learning how to play poker. So it's like this.
Yeah, that was gonna fund my group, but that was a bad idea.
So you're always like curious to learn new things. Like, is there like any kind of new skill or anything new that you're working on, like right now, you're trying to learn? Not necessarily related with running. I'm just,
So now I'm pretty focused in on my coaching. So I'm studying a lot of sports psych, tons of different books on sports psych, and nutrition books, and motivation books, corporate motivation books. I'm reading quite a few of those, and but I read tons of different books. I probably read 3 or 4 hours a day.
Wow.
So
that's a lot.
At least an hour on training, and then 2 to 3 hours on other stuff. So I get up crazy early and read tons, but everything's focused on just trying to be a better coach at this point.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, this idea of learning, because as a I guess entrepreneur, like starting my business, I used to, like, until recently I neglected like this idea of keep learning more, like, because you can get so focused or busy with doing stuff, that you kind of neglect that. And I recently started like, I do a lot of YouTube videos or Google stuff on how to build more your audience, or how to sell more stuff. So, and that's what I've been doing lately, and that usually 1 hour a day at the end of the day, and that has been helping me a lot. Like, you learn all kinds of tricks and ways to be more efficient, that I've seen is improving the performance of Dig Deep. So this idea that of course is very basic, and like learning, you can never, I guess, stop learning. So
that's
something that you've done, you know.
Always been studying training and different philosophies, and I've even expanded a lot, even from. So I have a book out called Run Faster, and I've even gotten more specific and a little more modern. My training's changed a little bit. It always changing.
When do you launch? So you have a book called Run Faster from 5K to Marathon Distance.
Yep. Yes.
So and you launched the first, I guess, edition in 09 maybe?
Yep.
Okay.
08.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so have you had like several editions revised
so,
or?
No, we haven't revised it. It sold I think it sold 70,000 or 5,000, something like that, which isn't much in the book world.
Oh, okay.
I think I get 50 cents or something.
Oh man,
you don't get much because I split it with someone. Like, it's just, I think you get $1 a book. Like same in the music world, you get like $1 or something, a CD.
Wow.
Yeah, they make their money from touring.
Oh.
Which you can't really tour as a coach.
You can, playing music, man.
I guess.
Let's talk about Hudson Elite. So Hudson Elite is the current chapter of your coaching career. Is that right?
It is. Yep. I've had a couple different groups. I've had Boulder Performance Group was my first group.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was in Eugene at sea level, I had Marathon Performance. Mm-hmm. And now I have Hudson Elite, which is a nonprofit.
Can you tell us more about what Hudson Elite is?
Yeah. So it's, it's definitely an athlete-driven group, and giving people, post-collegiate athletes, a chance to train and compete after college. And it was put together by Addie Bracey, Maggie Callahan, Kara Lubinecki, athletes I coached.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a board, and we're a nonprofit. And so the athletes really did a lot to put this group together.
Do the athletes that train with you focus 100% on training, or
No. So,
okay.
I mean, there's only a couple athletes I coach that really are would I say full-time athletes.
Okay.
And so they have a contract, and they're able to run and properly be professional.
Yeah.
But even most of them may have a job or two. So it's, most of the people are working full-time that I coach. So it's a little, it's harder for them to probably do my training and also to absorb the training and recover. There's so much to it. It's not just doing the training, it's recovering from the training and the stresses of life. And not that I'm making out that they have this tough life, but to be a great athlete nowadays, it has to be 100%.
That's interesting. Talking about making a living as a professional athlete. I think about athletes like this type of runners, or even triathletes who are training to win the Hawaiian Ironman, and they just don't make any money compared to, I don't know, NFL players.
And it's the interesting thing is that this, at least what I've seen over the period that I was competing and now, is that, and I think some of it has come from Salazar's group to some extent, is that just the professionalism. The sport's gotten way more professional with money in it, and it's the basketball, football, baseball had, because there was big money, they had trainers and they had nutritionists, and they were recovering because it was worth it. And running was not that it was like a hobby sport, but it was a little more like you ran, and then you ran for 90 minutes a day or whatever, and then you didn't really do that all this ancillary stuff like weightlifting and stretching and wearing compression boots, getting massage, getting chiropractic, sleeping, napping. We weren't paying attention to everything, living in altitude tents. Now it's gotten very, very professional. Every sport now, it's just gotten a lot more professional. It's moved over from the other sports. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Can you talk more about the current group that you're training, a little bit of the guys that, your athletes, what are they training for? And
so most of the athletes that I'm coaching at the moment are athletes that, the plan is to move them up to the marathon.
Okay.
Eventually, if not sooner than later. And so Parker Stinson will run Chicago Marathon.
Okay. Your hands, sorry. No.
And some of them this spring are running 10K and halves, and the sport's tough. Not all of them can get into all the races they want, and so it's not super easy.
Yeah.
But Ali Kiefer will run New York. She has an injury currently. Was supposed to run London marathon.
When was that? London? Like a couple weeks ago?
No, London's coming up.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's a few weeks away.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
So London and Boston are both coming up in the next few weeks.
Do you have any athletes that are doing Boston?
I have. So Fernando Cabada, who I just started working with, who was training in the Springs with ADP.
When you say Colorado Springs?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, has jumped in now with us. So he'll run London. And I have a couple athletes training for Grandma's Marathon, Grandma's Half.
Is London like one of those fast courses where you are supposed to try to get like a personal best? Or
yeah, it's one of the fastest courses in the world.
see.
So Boston's fast too. It can be depending
Really?
on the conditions of it. It's not an easy course, but if you have the wind at your back, every couple of years it's really, really super fast. But London, Berlin, Chicago are probably the 3 fastest marathons in the world, and Rotterdam as well when the weather's good.
Okay, so I've been reading this book called Tribe of Mentors. I think you're reading it too.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
so Tim Ferriss.
Yeah, I read everything. Everything like that I've read.
So, okay, I'm going to steal, let me say, I'm going to borrow a couple of Tim Ferriss's questions. I'm going to ask you that. Yeah. So one is...
Oh, the 5 that he... Okay, go ahead. This is great.
Because I'm creative, you see, by borrowing other people's questions. Okay, so one question that Tim asks is, how has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Like, do you have a favorite failure of yours?
I've got a lot of favorite failures. So I think for sure I've learned so much more failing than being successful. And it's made me a way better coach and more resilient coach. And when you fail, it makes you look at everything else outside of just the training and the whole athlete as a whole. And so I don't know if there's one in particular, but I've learned a lot.
Yeah, I hear you. Another one from Tim Ferriss. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life? And maybe kind of follow-up question, do you have any kind of routine or ritual?
Yeah, so I really have flipped. I used to be a night owl. I used to go to bed at when I was training, I'd go to bed at 3 or 4 in the morning. And
what? Wow.
Yeah, I was a strange guy. And I'd train at night a lot. I would do a lot of my training at night. And so I've really flipped it.
Really?
So now I get up at crazy early, 4 a.m. and I'm...
what time do you go to bed?
So I would be in bed right now, just to be honest.
Sorry.
I try to go to bed at 8. But so I get up super early, and I have a schedule of studying training, writing training, a lot of different things.
Yeah, so, I like that. So you're a routine guy for sure.
Yeah, I never was a routine. I don't know how. I was not a routine guy.
So when do you
I just trained myself to do it, honestly.
And when did you start doing that? How long ago?
Last 2 or 3 years. I've really got a regiment down. I used to be a night owl and study training at night, and I was kind of a free spirit.
Yeah.
A crazy person. Just a word for a crazy person.
It's funny because I think I started following my own routine thing this year. Started getting up earlier. It was so hard for me to just get up early. But then I just started doing this thing. Get up at 5. I do a little journaling, which is kind of a way for me to visualize the things that I want to achieve in the day. Mm-hmm. That being said, I don't go to bed early, unfortunately. Not because I like to stay up until late. It's just because, and this is just my personal take, I just I feel that I don't know, I'm just building this business and I just need to squeeze as many hours as I can.
Understand.
But then you have to find balance, right? So I think I have an opportunity to try to be more efficient, so because sleeping is important. So let's take a look. How long do we have? Oh, wow. Almost an hour, Brad. Gosh.
We were already been speaking now?
51 minutes.
Okay.
That's what I would just say. There's so many questions I want to ask you.
Long-winded, huh?
No, this is great.
Okay.
There's so many questions I want to ask that we're going to have to do part two. Yeah, definitely have to do it. We talked about that. Okay, so besides the athletes that you're currently training, what athletes or athletes get you excited like about their future, like right now?
So I would say Ali Kiefer, who I'm working with.
Yeah.
Parker and Ali definitely, and Sid Vaughn, who I coach, definitely have bright futures, I think, in distance running.
Yeah.
But when Ali was in Kenya, I would get her workouts. So they're 8 hours ahead of us. So I'd get her workouts. I think her morning workout would be, I'd get her workout some reason like at 2 a.m. She would come back from a workout, send me a workout. And so depending on how good the workout was, it was like I'd have to take 1 or 2 Ambien just to get to sleep afterwards. It was like, because I was so, for how much she improved. The sad thing is her getting hurt. There would be a lot more people, Americans probably in I-10, if they had seen her fitness coming out of there. She before she went there, she'd trained in Boulder here with us and ran 1:10:40 in Doha, and she was at least 2.5 minutes better than that. So it's unfortunate she didn't get to race.
So, like maybe this is I'm thinking about how to put this. Like, what is the idea of going behind going to I-10? Like, I get it. Like, I mean, because
focus. So it's a little bit of everything. So altitude.
It's like when Rocky goes to when he's in Russia and
probably
he's
a little bit like that, but not exactly. It's not cold like that.
Drago.
Yeah, it's not. So I think from there's hundreds of athletes in I-10 trying to make it. So there's people doing exactly what you're doing. There's nothing to do there.
Yeah, that's what really I was thinking. Right.
You just train and sleep and train, and it's all dirt roads. It's high elevation. The weather's perfect. Part of being a great athlete or doing anything great really is just how laser your focus can be. Okay, I see it as a coach. If you want to be great at anything, your focus has to be on what you're doing and not lose so many athletes that aren't, there's so much distraction here. And she talks about it just coming back to the US, like it's like a circus here. Like there's so much other things pulling you this way and that way. And when you can focus on something and you become great, That's why the Army has basic training and you got nothing to do except be a soldier, honestly.
To that point, what's the criteria that you follow or that you use to when you have your athletes training under Hudson and Elite, do they approach you and what kind of criteria are you looking for?
So we have some standards and
or standards,
they have to apply, and we have a waiting period for the group where like a trial period, I think it's 4 months, where we see if they're a good fit. It's so much, there's so many coaches out there, and there's no perfect coach for every athlete, and you see it, you just have to have a good relationship with the athlete and good chemistry and them fitting in the group and them liking your training. There's other options, and there's tons of options in this town. There's Roots Running, there's Boulder Track Club, there's Kathy Butler's group. I'm probably forgetting Steve Jones's group. I'm forgetting groups, but it's like you don't want to coach someone that wants to be in another group, or is a better fit for another group. So it's not a big deal. There's enough athletes to coach that you don't like. As a coach, you realize I don't want to coach everyone. I just want to coach people that are a good fit for.
That's what I was going to say.
Our situation.
So it's not just about working with somebody who's super fast.
No. I mean, is it fun working with people that are super fast? Yeah, and it's and I think I do. That's who I do want: super fast people and super dedicated people. And after coaching Rich and I think it was hard to coach sometimes other athletes that were like 80% in. You know what I mean? They probably felt I was only 80% in too. But
it's so funny. I tend to be pretty random. While you were saying that, I was just thinking about the experience that people have when they try Hoka shoes. Especially people who are looking for a cushion shoe. They try the Hokas, they try Hokas, and they're like, okay, there's no, they don't want to try other shoes.
It's got a different feel for sure, yeah.
Or it's like when the first time that I remember I bought a Mac, I used to have PCs, and then I switched to Mac. I was like, there's no turning back. Like completely different experience. Okay. So we are almost done, but I want to ask you a couple questions about something that's fun, music. So, okay, you talked about that you developed this love and passion for music. I mean, since you were young, and also because you because of college too. So, all right, I'm gonna ask you a very interesting question. Just only 5 bands or singers. Like, I don't know. I know it's hard.
So I probably can't pick bands, but I could give you my Desert Island CDs.
Yes, that's what I was. Okay. I like that.
I always ask people that, and most people, you got to pack quick. So you want my 10?
Oh yeah, I mean 10 sounds great. I was gonna say, wow, that's a good number. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, you count them down because I'll probably miscount. Okay, The Strokes, This Is It.
Okay.
U2, Joshua Tree. U2, Achtung Baby. Franz Ferdinand, first album, London Calling, The Clash.
Franz Ferdinand. Okay. Yeah, I think I know a song. I mean, okay, The Clash, London Calling. Okay, nice.
This is tough now.
Yeah, so you have 5. So
I have
5 to
at
go.
the moment. Okay. Right now I'm going through a gangster rap phase, so it's completely off kilter.
Yeah. Yeah, you've been playing
probably some jazz. I would probably put probably John Coltrane.
Yeah.
What would I take?
The Train Coltrane.
No, I would take either Blue Note or Love Supreme. I'd probably take Love Supreme.
Yeah,
I'd have to take Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, and
that's the best. Yeah.
And I'd probably take New Order, Substance. I would take
2 more.
The Smiths. I'd have to take the Smiths, Best Of.
Gosh, I'm lost.
I would probably have to take Nirvana.
Yes.
Best Of, and how many do I have?
1 more.
9. 1 more. Okay. It's Desert Island. Then I would probably take Beethoven or Mozart. Some compilation.
Nice. Yeah. That's one of the things I like about your music taste. Is like you don't only listen to just one type. You're like me. Like you can go from jazz all the way to, I don't know, Rage Against the Machine or.
But I used to be completely alternative snob. Like
really?
Only Smiths and Britpop and Pulp and London Sway. I was like a British snob music.
Huh.
Blur, Oasis. I was completely into.
Oasis.
But I've really branched off. I've really grown. I feel like I've really grown in the last few years.
Oh my God. Okay, so and then you talked about your favorite songs. Tell me a couple of guilty pleasure songs. Or like no. Is that how you rephrase it?
Like
no. Like, a couple of songs
like stuff I don't want to admit that I listen to?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant.
All right. Duran.
What?
Love Duran.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, okay.
I was gonna say
not a guilty pleasure.
I was gonna say like Britney Spears or
no, I would say no, Duran. I would say I don't know. My music taste is impeccable. It really is. even my bad stuff's pretty damn good.
Oh, dude, I was gonna say like Wilson Phillips or Belinda Carlisle.
No chance. Although I'm friends with Belinda Carlisle on Facebook.
That's
her real one.
So
I'm not sure how exactly, but
so fun fact in Peru, I used to listen to like Belinda Carlisle and Wilson Phillips and like Janet Jackson, Paula Abdul. I was in love with her. Don't ask me why.
Well, her early stuff too is very interesting. It was way ahead of its time as far as the production.
Yeah,
like her early stuff was produced amazing. It was so far ahead. But I'm not a Paula Abdul fan, but I'm just saying.
Right.
I see the value in the early stuff.
And then one day I had a friend from college who made me a tape, okay?
Yeah.
He made me a tape of this thing called grunge. So he put Nirvana and Pearl. I didn't know what those bands were.
Yeah.
Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and that changed my world. Like
I grew up in the Northwest during that era, and I saw Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Mudhoney, okay, when Pearl Jam was called Mookie Blaylock. They were named after a basketball player and then from the Knicks.
Way.
Yeah, so Eddie had just become the singer, and they're Halloween night. I saw them in Eugene with like 50 people. Yeah, and Alice in Chains. I mean, so many bands came from the Northwest. Even my neighbor when I was at University of Oregon was the lead singer from the Cherry Poppin' Daddies, who came to Oregon to run. Wow. He lived across the street from me. I'd always talk to him and stuff, and they made it fairly not huge, but they made it a little bit. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so Guys, there's so many other questions that I want to ask you, but I think we're going to do part 2, Brad. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for this.
Oh, Brad, it's been an awesome, tremendous pleasure. It's always fun talking with you. Thank you so much for your time today. For our listeners.
Thank you, Hugo.
Yeah, I invite you to follow Brad on Instagram. On Instagram, his handle is Coach_Hudson. Brad's Instagram, account is
and buy my book. It's amazing.
And buy his book as well. We're gonna put the links there. What I was gonna say
We're gonna translate it to Spanish too.
But, I like that. What I was gonna say. I forgot to. Final question. I actually had people asking. One is, so Morgan Pearson is asking for you to post more on Instagram. So I don't know if he was being.
He was joking.
Yeah,
he was joking.
I know.
Yeah.
And 2, there's a guy who asked. He doesn't run a lot outdoors just because he's busy, or I don't know. He was saying that if you think that by running, can you become an elite runner if you basically focus most of your running on the treadmill? What would you say?
My opinion,
it's hard,
not possible.
Yeah.
So I think you have to do some outside running or just have a lot of movement. I mean, there's people that train a lot strictly on the treadmill, and you can train well, but I think to develop, you have to do a little bit of everything. One thing I forgot to say is that I wanted to give a shout out to Luis Orta and Haruni Ujaratni. I forgot to mention that how excited I am about they've been running great, and Luis is training for a marathon at the moment, just broke the national record for Venezuela and the world half.
That's awesome.
And Haruni is training for the Commonwealth Games, has been running great. So I just want to give a shout out to them. I don't know why I spaced on them.
No, I mean, you train so many people, talented people. So awesome. This has been fun.
Thank you.
We're going to, my pleasure. And we're going to do a second part in the next weeks. And thanks everybody for joining the Dig Deep podcast tonight from Boulder Running Company here in Boulder, Colorado. Thank you very much. Bye.